Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and this is day 28 of a build or build video every day until they announce DLC. Hopefully today's the day that they announce DLC. If not, we know it's inevitably coming soon. For this one, we're going to be doing the 5 best faith builds I've ever done in Elden Ring. To start, we're going to start with a really strong one, and that's Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike. Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike is one of the most powerful incantations in the game, if not the most powerful, and it can one-shot the majority of bosses in Elden Ring. If you're ever looking for an easy mode, this is definitely easy mode. It's incredibly powerful, and after some buffs, you can absolutely destroy the majority of bosses. It is very, very easy to get used to. A little bit of a learning curve, but after of which you're going to be destroying bosses. This is a fantastic one that's a ton of fun. Now let's get into equipment. For this build at 150, you're going to want the Gravelstone Seal at plus 25, any Seppuku Sword to bring your HP down, the Jellyfish Shield, we have the Black Dumpling and Mushroom Crown, Godfrey Icon, Lightning Scorpion Charm, Red Feathered Branch Sword, Kindred of Rot's Exaltation, and then we have the Lightning tier, and you use the Bubble tier as well. This is a very powerful setup, and we're going to go over stats here. The main stat we want to focus on when we're looking at stats for Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike is Faith. And I know that seems obvious, but there's nothing else that works with it. Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike scales fully with Faith, so at that point where you can get Faith to 80, you're going to be absolutely destroying bosses with this. That's the goal, get Faith to 80. All the other stats are really up to you. You need 20 strength to use the Jellyfish Shield. You can also run dual seals, but it's 5% less damage. That is a personal favorite and absolute blast to use. I love Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike. And the next one up is the ENVOY'S Longhorn, which is a fantastic faith-based weapon that can destroy a lot of bosses in Elden Ring, particularly larger targets, while doing posture damage and immense holy damage. I know everybody, dude, but yeah, the ENVOY'S Longhorn is fantastic. It's incredibly powerful, it's very strong, and when you use it on larger targets particularly, it completely shreds them. It turns it into complete easy mode, and it works on most bosses in Elden Ring. If they're not 80% holy resistance, odds are they don't have that high resistance that Malekith, Radagon, and Elden Beast have. They'll get shredded by the damage of the ENVOY'S Longhorn. The bubbles do ridiculous amounts of damage, and you are building up posture damage as well, which makes it even more powerful. The ENVOY'S Longhorn is something that you can grab at the capital around the mid-game at the earliest. You can also get it in the Halig tree. It's incredibly powerful, and it's one of my favorite weapons in Elden Ring to use as a faith build. It also does work on some not as large targets, like you're going to see it on the Draconic Tree Sentinel here. This is a weapon that can completely shred a lot of the bosses in the game, especially first runs with a couple of buffs. Hellish Brewery will generically boost it by 25%. It can absolutely shred with the Ash of War, doing immense holy damage as we mentioned. The tougher Draconic Tree Sentinel, by the way, this was journey I think 14 or 15 at this point, so this is max scaling, and he got completely shredded by it and went down very fast. That was awesome. Gotta love the ENVOY'S Longhorn. Let's get into equipment. For equipment, we have the ENVOY'S Longhorn plus 10, any seal will do. We have the ENVOY'S Crown, which is another 15% on the damage. Ritual Sword Talisman, Shard of Alexander. We have the Sacred Scorpion Charm for the holy damage. Dragon Crest, preferably the Great Shield, and then we have the Holy tier, and you use the Faith tier as well to add some buffs. This build is an absolute blast to use. You'll have a ton of fun using this one, so definitely be sure to pick up the ENVOY'S Longhorn. And another thing we want to focus on here, obviously, with the theme is Faith. The Ash of War scales almost purely with Faith, so getting that to 60 or 80 is ideal. Does have some minimum strength requirements, I believe, of 22 or 23, 20-something, so it's not too bad there. Just get those minimum stats and then go for Faith for the rest of it to get the most damage out of the Ash of War, because that's mainly what you're going to be using. That's the primary benefit to this weapon. Definitely go high Faith. And next up, we have the Blasphemous Blade, a personal favorite and one of the most reliable and powerful weapons in Elden Ring. This was a build I did not too long ago. If you combine this with the Sword of Milos, you get the buff, the debuff from that, and then you can also get back FP and HP with the passives on both weapons and do massive damage with the Blasphemous Blade, one of the best fire weapons in the game, one of the most reliable weapons that heals you every time you use the Ash of War 2. It's been overpowered since launch, it's still overpowered, and it's one of my favorite weapons, particularly faith weapons in the game. This is a weapon that can bring you through all of Elden Ring, even on max scaling or later journeys that you go through. You're going to be fine with this weapon. Blasphemous Blade is incredibly powerful. It's something that is completely, as I mentioned, reliable, incredibly potent, heals you back all the time. It's something that you can use for pretty much every boss that's not fire resistant in Elden Ring. There's only a couple of those after all anyway. It is a very, very good weapon. If you've never tried it, pick up the Blasphemous Blade. It is like easy mode. It's still fantastic. Still one of the best weapons in the game. Fantastic for faith builds. Yeah, you're absolutely going to enjoy this one. Everybody's known since launch that this has been one of the most powerful PvE weapons in the game, and it's one of those weapons where you don't have to go crazy with buffs, but if you do, you can get even more damage out of it. Sword of Milos combos fantastically with it for that FP and HP regen, and for the debuff you can get as well. You'll end up enjoying this weapon a ton if you've never used it, if you're new to Elden Ring, and if you're somebody that's already used the Blasphemous Blade and wants a good setup, this is something that can really do a lot of damage. It can make the best out of the Ash of War and everything that we use here, and the combination, once again, since they have a dual move set, is fantastic with the Sword of Milos as well. This is definitely one of my favorites. It's probably a lot of people's favorites at this point. Now let's get into equipment. For equipment, we have the Blasphemous Blade plus 10. The Sword of Milos you preferably want upgraded. I was just using it for the passive effect. Any seal will do. We have the Shard of Alexander, Ritual Swords Talisman, Fire Scorpion Charm, Dragon Crest, preferably the Great Shield. And you're going to go with the Fire tier, and then if you want to do the Faith tier or Defense tier, that's up to you. There's a lot of other options for the second one. And for stats, we're obviously going to go High Faith again. These stats are really good for a Blasphemous Blade Sword of Milos setup. That's the video that I attached. By the way, all the videos are in the description below, so they'll help you with these builds even further. And if you're not subbed, definitely be sure to sub to this channel. This has been a ton of fun lately. We've been doing a ton of builds, ton of Elden Ring content. It's been an absolute blast so far, and I decided to celebrate the anniversary with this weekend doing a whole bunch of lists. We did yesterday, we did the 5 best arcane builds, today the 5 best faith, and tomorrow the 5 best magic builds. Next one up, percentage damage, Black Knife, Black Blade, and then of course Black Flame. Now for this we're going to show off the Black Knife Black Blade combo, and speaking of which, this is another obviously Holy Faith build. These stack for the percentage damage. You only get one debuff, but the Black Blade and Black Knife do stack in terms of percentage damage, which makes them incredibly powerful. Now I did attach the Black Flame build to the video as well. There weren't any clips for that I threw in this one, but that's also incredibly powerful. I combined the two because they're both percentage damage. They do work a little bit differently talisman wise, but generally speaking, you're going to want to go High Faith again for both of these. The Black Knife's Ash of War scales almost purely with Faith, and since the Black Blade's an incantation, it makes very easy as far as the stats go for this to just go High Faith again. Now let's get into equipment. For equipment, we have the Black Knife plus 10. We have the Erdtree seal fully upgraded because it scales fantastically with Faith. You can throw on Malachite's armor set if you want to do that. It looks pretty cool with it. Shard of Alexander, Sacred Scorpion Charm, Ritual Swords Talisman, Dragon Crest Great Shield preferably, and then obviously we have the Holy tier as well, and the Faith tier or Defense tier. For stats here, obviously we're solely invested in Faith because that's what we're doing here. We're mainly using Faith. The higher you can get your Faith stat, once again, the more damage you're going to get out of this. The percentage damage a little more, and the initial contact damage will go up as well. These are fantastic to combine. They do a lot of damage. They're a fantastic Faith setup. If you want to do the Black Knife, definitely throw the Black Blade incantation in there because that percentage damage will stack. Next up and last up, all fire build. This build is absolutely awesome. Now for the Magma Blades here, they also scale. The Ash of War is almost entirely Faith. If you're going to use it for the physical portion of the weapon, just by itself, it's going to scale with Strength. But for the Ash of War, it's probably 90% or more Faith. So once again, you want to go with that high Faith stat, get that pool of lava, and a lot of damage out of them. Then you get to use incantations like Burn O' Flame, which is fantastic. With just a couple of simple buffs, you can absolutely shred enemies and bosses with this. Melania, by the way, can absolutely be destroyed by it. You can check that out in the video on how to beat her with it. Knocks her down. She has 0 fire resistance, so it works fantastically on her. Destroys tree avatars as well. Now let's get into equipment. Now for the Magma Blades, we have 2 of them at plus 10. If you're just spamming the Ash of War, you really only need 1, but it looks cooler to have 2. And then we have the Giant's Seal as well for the boost there for the incantations. Fire Scorpion Charm, Shard of Alexander, Dragon Crest, Ritual Swords Talisman, and we have the Fire tier as well. But what do you know? Once again, High Faith. Obviously, it's the theme of this entire video, so it makes sense. But once again, if you go with the minimum stats and High Faith, you'll absolutely shred with the Magma Blades while also being able to take advantage of the Giant Seals boost. You can even do dual seals for all the fire incantations as well and get the buff from both of those to do massive fire damage. This is undoubtedly one of my favorite builds in Elden Ring, along with the lightning build. It's fantastic to use. If you like fire builds, pyromancy stuff, this is an excellent build to use. And there it is. Look, we got a little celebration at the end here. It's been 1 year since Elden Ring launched. It was a fantastic game, still is a fantastic game. I really hope we get that DLC announcement soon. This is probably one of the best games I've ever played. Literally changed my life in making a channel for it. It's been a ton of fun so far. Appreciate everybody. Can't believe it's been a year since launch. I started my channel in late May, early June, but it's absolutely awesome doing this, continuing to make builds, and obviously continuing to make content. If you're not subbed, definitely be sure to sub to this channel. I started a Patreon too. I'm going to do a couple of things for that too, so if you want to support the channel even further, feel free to do that. I appreciate everything to this point. Thanks everybody so much. If you love overpowered PvE builds, definitely check out the channel. Thanks for watching everybody, and we'll catch you guys there.